Hello, this is Nathaniel. I'm the singer in the French band Dionysiaque. We play unorthodox doom. And actually, the story of the band starts in 2014. Back in the days, I was without band, and I had been active in another band before called Resistance. I had recorded two albums and toured a bit all around Europe. And now I wanted to get back at work with metal. So I stumbled across Loic, and he's like 10 years younger than I am. So he was still pretty young at the time, but very much motivated and interested in a great deal of different musics. So we had a really nice feeling going on, and soon we became friends. And I told him, well, if you want to show me your riffs, let's meet. Of course, he said, yes, I have some stuff, but he had nothing or almost nothing. And when we met, he just showed me a couple of stuff he was doing on the guitar, and I was like, yeah, this is some good stuff. So this is 2014, and it took us like 4 years before we actually could find other musicians. It was pretty heavy and hard to find the good persons because we play a kind of doom that not so many people do enjoy or know about. So it was nice to finally find some souls okay to join the adventure. It allowed us to actually record two demos, but after the second demo was out, Loic and I were not really completely satisfied with the way of the dynamics in the band, so we decided to part ways with two members. And soon after that, another member left, and we were two once again because it was in 2022. And then we said if we want to record the first album, we want it done properly and not regret anything about it. So we were looking for new people, and really, really quickly the stars aligned, and we found the right persons. And so far, this is the lineup you have on both albums and until today. So there is a real chemistry, and there was a real step up with the band and the skills, musically speaking, which allowed us to play a lot, to record two albums. And every time we recorded an album, we did it completely live. So this is our way to do things, and so far it's going pretty good, I guess. So 2014 we formed the band. 2018 we find the first lineup. We had two demos, and then we played together like that until 2022. And then from there on, we had the new lineup and could record two albums with the label I Void Hanger Records from Italy that has done a very, very good job so far. So luckily, it's not the end of this collaboration because we feel at home with I Void Hanger, and we also feel at home with the lineup we have until now. Well, a lot of people tend to think that doom metal is simply slow music, which is kind of true to a certain extent. But the word doom has a strong meaning. It means you're confronted to fate and your own mortality. You're crushed and grinded by something greater and stronger than you. It has a lot to do with mood and depression, and this is a genre of metal that is really as emotional as heavy and crushing. But musically speaking, the very first so-called doom metal bands are not per se exclusively playing slow music. I tend to see doom metal as a kind of a slow heavy metal, but heavy metal is basically a derivation of metal and rock and roll. So it allows you to remain pretty free in your intent and in the way you deliver your music. So it would have been silly in our book to play by the book of someone else, or by some golden rules that nobody really wrote. Actually, we were just intending to play music whose DNA, whose core was moody, slow, and crushing, but it was by no means preventing us of, experimenting, doing stuff we would like. If we want to have D-beat or blast beat, well, we do it. If we want to play thrashing riffs, we play them. So the whole point is remaining free and picking many influences. We listen to a lot of different stuff, be it metal, prog rock, blues, proto hard rock. We also have members in the band listening to grindcore. I do enjoy a lot of hardcore, Japanese hardcore, D-beat, punk, African music. So you name it. If we find something interesting, musically speaking, well, then we might get some influences from it and try to blend it into our own world. So, there is no limits, but I would call the gut feeling. When it comes to Dionysiaque, we have a standard. Primarily, the bands that influenced us were Dark Throne, Hellhammer, Voivod, and Head of the Demon and Evil Spirit. So this is this kind of a twisted vibe from the very start, with the extreme metal blend in. So we have no limits, but this gut feeling I was mentioning before, which means we know if it sounds like what we want to do with this band or not when we play together, and there is no real ego stuff in the band. So we toy with the riffs and we toy with the arrangements, and then we come up with something that speaks to everybody in the band, and that's how we compose and do our music. Of course, I can understand the value of gatekeeping and trying to play music in a purest way, blah blah blah, but this is not really interesting to us. Music has to be alive, to breathe, to have some air, and maybe to question what's been done before, because even though we are very much rooted in a very old school vibe, I would say that the mix we offer to your ears is something that has not really been done before. Of course, we're not 100% original, but we have a strong personality and we do write this music with a lot of thoughts in it, which means in the end, the result here is an amalgamation of, decades and even centuries of music. So it's music that is kind of reflecting its own time, and I do hope that it speaks to other people than us. Apparently, it does, from the feedback we have about the reviews and the people coming to see us after we performed on stage and stuff. So it's interesting because it was not completely conscious that we would bring something so new, or reinventing something, but at least it seems that we do something right, because it appeals to people. And many times I could read that, well, this is doom, but this is not usual, this is different. So different doesn't mean it's good, but so far it seems to be working on people outside of the band. So we'll keep on doing this music. Of course, the goal is not to reproduce the same thing over and over. Working with a formula is not really us. So we do not even know ourselves how the future will sound for us. But at least we always try to challenge ourselves and to confront ourselves to new music, to new ideas, and we try to have a vision with this band. And this is very important, to know where we want to go and the way we go to this goal, the way we try to reach this goal, is still, something we have not completely control over. And that's nice because not everything has to be predictable. It's just like life, and Dionysiac really reflects that. We are a very lively band. As I said before, from the very start, we had in mind to mix more traditional doom, the things like Trouble, Black Sabbath, Candlemas, Saint Vitus, this vibe of old school doom metal with more contemporary or extreme metal aspects. That's why a band like Evil Spirit from Berlin really had a strong impact on us. Sadly, it's a band that not many people mention or know about, and they had to disband a couple of years ago. But their take on doom metal was really interesting. They even had some saxophone at some point on one track. It was a very free approach to music. So, well, that's what we recognize as a path we want to follow. So there is, of course, a very strong respect of every member of the band for a band like Black Sabbath, but there is no point for us to reproduce what Black Sabbath did. That's somehow the disease of a genre called stoner. Stoner rock is just rehashing the three same old riffs. Of course, not every stoner band is bad, and luckily there are some good bands, but most of the time there is this nostalgia factor, and people want to rely very heavily on one specificity of a genre. And well, if they find happiness in this, why not? That's up to them. But I find it quite boring after a while. I need a challenge. I need to be questioned. I don't want my music to be easy to get into. I mean, what I'm listening to. So we all have this approach in the band, which does not mean that we want to sound like King Crimson all the time, but there is a very strong point for us to always remain free and as interesting as possible, at least first for us. And then if people follow us, that's very good. That's just a bonus. But we do not rely on a formula. So, of course, the monsters of the genre just inspired us. And we listen to a very wide range of musical styles. So, of course, we have a kind of a punkish attitude. Some people even tagged us as anarcho doom, because yes, we have this very political side to the band, especially with the last album. We are on the progressive side of things. We are on the left, and we recognize a lot of interesting things in anarchy. So we deal with this, we speak about it, and this is maybe something pretty not so common for doom metal, but we don't owe anything to anyone. We just do what we please. So in a way, if I listen to bands like Aus Rotten from America, Behind the Nummy Lines, Crass, all those anarchist bands like Crucifix and stuff, this will come into the attitude I have in the band. So musically speaking, it's maybe not an obvious connection between the doom we play and this kind of more hardcore punkish music, but in the end, the influence is there, and you can find it in the lyrics. Also, we try to work with rhythms that we can find interesting in other genres, just like our guitarist Loic is very much into shoegaze, about My Bloody Valentine, for instance. So I know the other guitarist is also heavily into bands like Alice in Chains. It's not always stuff that I do personally listen to, but I find it interesting that every member in the band, is bringing some of his own universe. And when we meet, it all blends together and it gives what we are. So this is always interesting to be open to new ideas, new things, and to confront yourself with something else. I like myself to listen to a lot of new music every day, and even though it will not be a direct impact on my music, there is always a little something that sticks in here and that I can mention to the others, and we can work on that for a while, you know. So it can be medieval music, African music from the 70s, or grindcore. We don't give a fuck, actually. We just listen to music that moves us, and then we try to convey that into our own universe and our own rules. So that's how we work, actually. You can say that most of the modern sounding bands are not really our cup of tea, because the music we play is more of a, akin to rock. It's very free music, it's very organic music. So be it for the production or the way we play it or the intent we put in it, it has to be very much organic and live, you know. This is very important because I saw a video lately talking about the way white people talk about blues or African music. And the first times white people tried to describe this music that was not theirs, they were describing it with their, way of seeing it. So for them, it was important to be in tune, to be perfect in the execution. Whereas in more authentic music like blues or spirituals or even early African music, tribal music. The point is, to to deliver something with a sense of interpretation. That this is intent that is mattering more than anything else. So we kind of follow that path ourselves. We are much more in the intent rather than in the technicality of the riffs or the perfection of the production, which is also something that is killing metal these days. Everybody wants to sound so perfect that in the end it sounds robotic and dead. There is no feeling there anymore. I mean, everybody loves the first Black Sabbath album. It's been recorded in maybe 12 hours or something, and that was it. It's not a perfect sounding album, and I like it that way. So it's time maybe to bring back this kind of attitude and feeling into the music. I'm not saying that with our little band we will be bringing a revolution, and we are not looking, back in time, but we think there is still room for that kind of intent and attitude in metal nowadays. At least when I hear, bombastic modern production, I don't feel any interest in it. Some bands are doing great stuff, it's not a matter of saying this genre is bad. No, you can find interesting stuff everywhere. But usually, when I hear something modern, well, I will have a hard time to get into it unless it has some personality, it has some, experimental aspects to it. Maybe it will be interesting for my curiosity, but otherwise, I think metal became very stale and safe, So let's bring back some danger, some, unpredictability in the music. This is what I crave for, actually. Actually, when we started the band in 2014 with Loic, we were looking for a name, and the concept of Dionysos came very quickly because we live as such, there is a lot of duality in the character of Dionysos, and he can bring joy, exhilaration. He can bring very positive things, but at the same time, he can bring fear. He can bring death. He can be cruel. He is really a reflection of life itself. It's chaotic. It's vibrant. It's all over the place, and it can be tricky. It can be horrifying, and it can be great. It can be all that at the same time. It can be very complex. So the goal with the band was to talk about that, be in that field of unpredictability and something very much alive. Of course, death is a part of the cycle of life, so death is very present in the last album, for instance, and also in the first album and in the demos. But the point is, we speak from the point of view of the living and the experiences of human beings and living things on Earth. So this is a very human, very lively way of approaching the music and creation. So it's important for us to stay with a lot of variety in what we do, just as life is. So for a song, we often have an idea beforehand, like okay, I saw this little story, and most of the time it's based on a historical event or literature or everything that inspires us and brings us emotion. So it's a very emotional music, not in the way of playing music that will make you cry and stuff, but it's filled with human emotions. So it touches us, and then we decide to deal with those topics through the prism of Dionysiaque, actually. So yeah, this is something you can find on every recording by the band, actually. So the way we record is live, the way we do compose, everything is connected to something very much alive, actually. So alive and human. So no wonder that we became so political after a while, because well, look at the world we live in. Look at the history we have in common, you and I, with our two countries and cultures. So, it can be complex, it can be hard, it can be anything you want. But you have, to embrace it. That's the lesson of Dionysos. There is a story when he met the king Pantheos, who was not giving him any credit. He was not, thinking or believing that Dionysos was a powerful god. And Dionysos went up on the hill, and he took all the women from the city with him. He induced them into frenzy and dances and stupor. They were intoxicated and dancing and stuff. And the own mother of the king Pentheus decapitated her son under the influence of all those, toxic products. And when she kind of woke up and got back to her senses the next day, she realized she had beheaded her own son. And this is a lesson of Dionysos. Deny the darkness inside, and you will pay the most horrible price. So that's how life is supposed to be. It's not always easy. It's not always pink and full of flowers. But if you do not embrace this darkness, you will fall, as Antisect used to say, in darkness there is no choice. But in the end, the only thing you have to do is to embrace it, not being depressed all the time and stuff, but you have to confront yourself with life and the harshness and the bleakness of it. Otherwise, you won't make it. So, this is a very cathartic kind of music, and this is our take on music. And doom metal is supposed to be a modern version of blues in a way. So, this is the way we do things. We are a very cathartic band. We try to expurge all the dirt and bile you have in yourselves, first in ourselves, and if it can help you, to throw out all the bad things you have in yourself, well, the job is done then. Well, talking about doom metal and the French doom metal scene, what can I say? We have, not only in doom metal, but according to me, we have one of the most dynamic and interesting scene when it comes to all genres metal in France at the moment. I have never seen that before. Of course, when you say France, people think immediately of the early 80s heavy metal bands, Sortilège, H-Bomb, etc. But we had cycles when a couple of bands were a bit more known and appreciated abroad, but we never had, a big breakout. Most likely, one of the most famous metal bands nowadays would be Gojira. But the guys don't even live in France anymore, or maybe they are back. I don't know. It's not a band that I follow, but still, it's scarce to see even big metal bands from France that are praised and known abroad. So for a scene like doom metal, which is very tiny, with a lot of bands that even in France do not have a lot of recognition, it's not so so easy to reach other countries. But still, if you look at an older band like Conviction, they are signed on a foreign label. They work with Argonauta Records. We work with I Void Hanger Records. It's not so bad in the end. We have a band like Barabbas. We played with them a couple of times already, which is great, and that had a lot of great reviews abroad. So I think it's not completely true that on an international scale, French doom metal is not so established. It's not big, that's for sure, but it's not non-existent either. And I think that lately we finally came to a point where being a metal band from France is not curse anymore, because for a long time you were French and people would not even pay attention to what you do. Nowadays we have so many great bands. Think of, I talk about the underground, but we have bands like Executor playing great thrash metal, Skeletal playing very good death metal. Venefiction is great also when it comes to death metal. Um, we have a very active scene. Hazel, when it comes to heavy metal, is amazing, and it has been praised internationally as well. So, I'm not pessimistic about it. I think slowly but surely we start to build a very strong underground. Of course, it's all about the money and the structures getting you to play, but we have nice underground festivals that are now existing in France. And if you pull the right strings, even for a band like us, you can find opportunities to play abroad. We just played Metal Magic in Denmark, and we were very well welcomed, even though not a lot of people knew about us. But it was allowing us to get more established. And I know for sure that if we want to go back to Denmark in the future, we will have more opportunities. So it's also a matter of relationships you have with the scene and the people abroad. And we have the chance nowadays to see labels like Dying Victims Production sign French bands. Think of Sacrificer, think of Palantir. We have something going on at the moment in France. This is precious, I think, and we are even regarded as having some strong bands in the underground. So if it's working for other genres of metal, it is also working for doom. And luckily, We see new bands and newcomers getting inspired by what we do, but by what other older doom bands have done in the past, you know. So the thing is just passing the torch, you know, and I think it's slowly getting there at the moment. So I'm pretty optimistic for the future. To be honest, the first reaction I had was like, okay, is it something we have to pay for? Because you know these days you get so many emails by tons of people trying to you know get something from you, and you know it's not even fun anymore because you know they think that such a small underground band like us will maybe give them 200, 500 euros just to have some visibility. Well, that's fucked up. And I must say that with Last Cathedral, it was different because we talked and the vibe was great, and we had the same way of looking at things. You know, since before I'm doing this interview, you can notice that I try to be open to what's going on, to the underground, to new music, to people. And this is the way it's going with Last Cathedral. So there are not so many compilations as of now, but the work is pretty rad. I think we just had to ask our label if he agreed on letting us put a track on this compilation. And, you know, Last Cathedral did it all. And there is a good array of nice bands, some I didn't know about. So I'm gladly discovering new stuff. And, you know, there are bands from Chile, from Finland, from France, from everywhere in the world. So, I guess the attitude is great. This is what a compilation is about in the first place, because you know you don't do that much profit with music anymore these days. And you know, back in the days when you had no internet, a compilation was a good way to discover new things. And I think this compilation is working the same way. It's not just a compilation made with people who paid to be there, you know. So it is more genuine and it is more from the heart. And this is actually why we did accept to work with Last Cathedral, and we do thank them a lot for thinking about us. You know, there are plenty of other very good bands in the world, and well, they thought we were worth of being there. So I can't complain, and I'm really happy this kind of initiative has been done, and I wish them luck for the future. I kind of already answered that last question in the question before. Well, yes, I think it can bring new connections and it can bring, you know, collaboration between bands. Uh, for the moment, this compilation has been released not so long ago, and so far I have not been in touch with other bands. Well, I know a couple of them already since before the Ancient Vigil compilation existed, but I know, for instance, that thanks to a fanzine called Feed the Beast from Germany. Really great papers in. You should really try to get your hands on. We became friends with another band called Jade from Barcelona, simply because they were featured in the same issue. And from what they had to say, I thought those guys are interesting, and we became very good friends now. And we had the chance to tour and play together already. So it's nice, and I think this kind of compilation can do exactly the same. You know, so. I should be more active, I guess, and try to write to other bands and see what's going to happen for the future. But yes, indeed, this is a very good thing to have these kind of compilations because it's making you think out of the frame you have, you know, your own contacts, your own network, and this brings new connections or new possibilities in the end. So we'll see what we can make of it. But Yeah, and I encourage the other bands from the compilation to get in touch with me and just say hello and start from there and see what we can do. We already have a compilation in common and a taste for cool doom metal, so that's already pretty cool, I think. So I thank you very much for this interview. If you have anything to ask, just come back to me. You can find Dionysiaque on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Maybe you will be touched by the music we play, maybe not, and that's cool too. Just try to be cool, remain open to other people and other ways of thinking, and try not to be an asshole with people. That would be a good start. And I think that with most doom bands I had encountered with, well, this was the case. I was lucky to stumble across nice people who really had the heart for the music and for the people. So, well, take care and thank you very much.